Emily Carter thought she had married the love of her life. Daniel Brooks promised forever, but within months, forever turned into fear, betrayal, and a brutal death. And when the truth came out, the most shocking part wasn't just Daniel's affair. It was who he was sharing it with, Emily's own sister, Claire. Emily Carter had always believed in happy endings. After years of focusing on her nursing career, she finally met someone who made her feel like the world was brighter. Daniel Brooks entered her life at a local charity event, flashing an easy smile and a confidence that drew people in. He wasn't just handsome. He was attentive, charming, and seemed genuinely interested in everything she said. Their connection felt instant, the kind of spark Emily had only read about in romance novels. In just a few months, their relationship blossomed into something beautiful. Friends often commented on how perfect they looked together, and Emily agreed. Daniel was thoughtful, surprising her with flowers after long shifts and planning weekend trips to quiet lakeside cabins. When he proposed during a sunset walk on the beach, Emily felt like the luckiest woman alive. Their wedding was small but elegant, a gathering of close friends and family in a countryside venue. Laughter filled the air, and Emily's heart swelled as she danced in Daniel's arms, believing she had found the man of her dreams. She wore a soft ivory gown, and he looked striking in a tailored navy suit. Every photograph captured their smiles. Every glance between them spoke of love. After the wedding, they moved into a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood. Emily decorated the rooms with warm colors and fresh flowers, imagining the life they would build together. She pictured Sunday mornings with pancakes and coffee, lazy evenings on the couch, and someday, maybe, children running down the hallway. To everyone who saw them, Emily and Daniel were the perfect couple. But perfection has a way of hiding cracks. And in the shadows of their picture-perfect life, something sinister had already begun to take shape. Claire was the kind of sister everyone admired, bubbly, outgoing, and always the life of the party. At 24, she worked as a freelance photographer, chasing dreams and living a carefree life. Emily adored her and often bragged about how lucky she was to have a sister who doubled as her best friend. When Emily got engaged, Claire was the first to know. She helped choose the wedding dress, plan the bridal shower, and stood proudly by Emily's side as maid of honor on the big day. When Emily introduced Daniel to Claire, the interaction seemed normal, even sweet. Daniel greeted her warmly, and Claire responded with her usual charm. During family gatherings, the two often exchanged friendly jokes and lighthearted comments. Emily noticed and felt grateful that her new husband and sister got along so well. It seemed like a blessing. In Emily's mind, this was the kind of harmony every newlywed dreamed of, family blending together seamlessly. Soon, Daniel and Claire began appearing more comfortable around each other. They would laugh at inside jokes, share stories, and even text occasionally. Emily thought nothing of it. Why would she? Claire had always been close to the people Emily cared about. To Emily, this bond was simply another sign that her life was unfolding perfectly. On weekends, Claire often visited their home, sometimes staying late into the night. Emily enjoyed these visits, imagining they were strengthening family ties. She loved seeing Daniel smile when Claire was around, believing it was because he felt accepted by her family. What Emily didn't know was that behind those shared laughs and casual glances, something dangerous was growing, a secret that would shatter everything. The first signs of trouble were subtle, almost invisible to anyone who wasn't looking closely. Emily had always trusted Daniel completely, but small things began to unsettle her. It started with his phone. He kept it close, even in the shower. When it buzzed late at night, he would glance at the screen and turn it face down, brushing off her questions with a casual smile. Claire, too, began acting differently. She started canceling family dinners, saying she was busy with photography projects. When she did come around, she seemed distracted, her phone never leaving her hand. Emily told herself it was nothing. After all, life gets hectic. But deep down, a quiet unease started creeping in, whispering doubts she tried to ignore. One afternoon, Emily noticed Daniel's shirt smelling faintly of a perfume she didn't own. She asked him about it, and he laughed, saying it must have been from a patient at the clinic where he worked. His explanation sounded reasonable, yet it didn't silence the nagging feeling in her chest. At night, Emily would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was imagining things. She hated the idea of being the paranoid wife. Her doubts grew stronger when she saw Claire post a vague social media caption about dangerous love paired with a photo of a hotel balcony. Emily scrolled past it, but her stomach twisted. Was it just a coincidence? She tried to convince herself it was. She loved Daniel too much to believe otherwise. Emily had no proof, only a growing sense that something was wrong. What she didn't know was that her instincts were right. And soon, the truth would no longer hide in the shadows. It would stare her in the face. The rain fell steadily that afternoon, drumming softly against the windows as Emily settled on the couch with her laptop. She planned to check a few emails before starting dinner. Daniel had left in a hurry that morning, claiming he had an urgent meeting. When Emily opened the laptop, she wasn't expecting to find anything unusual. But as the screen lit up, a series of notifications appeared, messages, photos, and documents saved under an unfamiliar folder name. Curiosity tugged at her. She clicked. The folder opened to a collection of images that made her breath hitch. There was Daniel, smiling in a hotel room, his arm wrapped around a woman Emily recognized instantly. Claire, her own sister. Each photo was worse than the last. Intimate moments captured in secret, undeniable proof of betrayal. Emily's hands trembled as she scrolled through the files, her pulse pounding in her ears. Then she found the messages. They weren't just flirtatious. They were explicit, filled with plans, promises, and confessions. Daniel had told Claire he wished he had married her instead. He talked about a future together, about getting rid of complications. Emily froze at those words, her mind struggling to process what they could mean. She dropped the laptop on the couch, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The life she had carefully built, the love she believed in, was nothing but a cruel illusion. Anger and heartbreak crashed over her in waves, leaving her shaking and nauseous. Emily sat in silence as the rain continued to fall, her thoughts spiraling. She had found the truth, and now there was no going back. She had to confront Daniel, but she had no idea how dangerous that decision would be. Emily paced the living room, her heart hammering against her ribs as anger and betrayal consumed her. Every memory of her wedding day, every loving word Daniel had ever spoken, now felt like a cruel joke. She imagined him and Claire laughing behind her back, sharing secrets while she played the devoted wife. The humiliation burned as much as the heartbreak. When Daniel finally walked through the door that evening, Emily's pulse spiked. He looked calm, as if nothing was wrong, setting his keys on the counter and loosening his tie. Emily stood frozen for a moment, gripping the edge of the couch for support. Then the storm broke. She confronted him with the evidence, her words trembling but sharp, throwing every photo and message into the light. At first, Daniel's expression was blank, almost unreadable. Then his face hardened. The man who once whispered promises of forever now looked at her with cold, simmering anger. He didn't apologize. He didn't even try to explain. Instead, his voice rose, sharp and venomous, turning the blame on her. Emily felt stunned. This wasn't guilt. It was fury, and it was growing by the second. As the argument escalated, Daniel's composure shattered. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight with rage. Emily, still reeling from the betrayal, didn't notice how dangerous he had become. She thought she was standing up for herself, but in Daniel's mind, the walls were closing in. She knew too much. His perfect life, his secrets, his control, everything was at risk. The air between them thickened, charged with violence waiting to erupt. Emily didn't see the darkness in his eyes until it was too late. In that moment, their love story ended, and something far more sinister began. The fight started with shouting, words flung like knives across the room. Emily's voice shook with rage, demanding answers he refused to give. Daniel's anger only grew, his face flushed, his breathing harsh. He stepped closer, towering over her, his hands twitching at his sides. Emily held her ground, clutching the laptop as if it were a shield, the evidence of his betrayal still open on the screen. Then, in a sudden burst of fury, Daniel lunged. He tore the laptop from her hands and hurled it against the wall, shattering it into pieces. Emily gasped, fear rushing in where anger had been. Before she could speak, his hand struck her across the face, sending her sprawling to the floor. The sharp taste of blood filled her mouth as she scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to go. Daniel didn't stop. His fists came down again and again, each blow fueled by rage and desperation. Emily tried to fight back, her screams muffled by the sound of rain pounding against the windows and the thuds of violence echoing through the house. Neighbors later said they heard a scream, a single, sharp cry, followed by silence. When it was over, Emily lay motionless on the living room floor, her body broken and bruised. Daniel stood above her, his chest heaving, his hands stained red. For a long moment, he just stared, as if trying to convince himself this wasn't real. The reality of what he had done settled over him like a suffocating weight. Panic set in. He couldn't call for help, not after this. He couldn't let anyone know. Slowly, he stepped back, trembling, his mind already racing toward the next step. Covering his tracks was the only option, and in his darkest thoughts, there was only one person he could trust to help him. Daniel grabbed his phone with shaking hands and dialed Claire's number. When she answered, his words came out in broken fragments, but she understood enough. Within an hour, Claire was at the house, her face pale, eyes wide as she stepped inside and saw the lifeless body on the floor. For a long moment, she didn't speak. The reality of what had happened hung heavy in the air. Fear clawed at her throat. She wanted to run, to pretend she had never answered the call, but Daniel's grip on her arm stopped her. His voice was low, urgent, filled with panic. If she didn't help him, everything would come crashing down, not just for him, but for her too. The affair would be exposed. Their secret would destroy them both. In that moment, Claire made a choice she would never be able to undo. They worked in silence, moving quickly and methodically. Daniel dragged Emily's body toward the hallway while Claire grabbed cleaning supplies. Every surface she touched felt cold and foreign, every stain another reminder of what they were doing. They scrubbed until their hands ached, erasing blood from the floor, the walls, even the baseboards. But no matter how hard they worked, the smell lingered, a metallic tang that seemed impossible to wash away. When the cleaning was done, Daniel staged the scene. He tipped over drawers, scattered jewelry boxes, and smashed a window to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. It was a desperate attempt, and deep down, both of them knew it wasn't convincing. But they had no better plan. Before leaving, Claire glanced one last time at Emily's body, now hidden beneath a sheet. Guilt twisted in her chest, but fear was stronger. She walked out of the house, knowing her life had changed forever. Detectives arrived at the scene the next morning after Daniel called in the supposed break-in. He played his part well, shaken, distraught, insisting he had come home to find his wife murdered. But the story started unraveling almost immediately. There were no signs of forced entry. The broken window didn't match the direction of the shattered glass. Nothing of value was missing. For experienced investigators, the scene looked staged. Emily's body told its own story. The injuries were brutal, suggesting a crime of passion rather than a random robbery. Fingerprints and fibers clung to surfaces despite the frantic cleaning. And then came the neighbors. Several reported hearing a violent argument and a single scream late the previous night, contradicting Daniel's timeline. The investigation quickly turned toward those closest to Emily. Detectives examined her phone, then Daniel's. When they retrieved the data from his damaged laptop, everything came spilling out: the hidden messages, the photos, the hotel receipts. The affair was no longer a suspicion, it was undeniable evidence. Claire's involvement became clear when detectives found text messages exchanged between her and Daniel the night of the murder. They weren't about shock or grief. They were about cleaning up the mess. That was the moment investigators knew they weren't just dealing with a killer, but with an accomplice. Daniel's calm demeanor cracked under interrogation. What began as firm denials turned into shifting stories, each one less believable than the last. Claire broke even faster. The weight of the crime crushed her, and she confessed first, pulling Daniel down with her. By the end of the week, the truth was out. Emily hadn't died at the hands of a stranger. She had been murdered by the man she loved, with the help of the sister she trusted most. The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial. Reporters lined the hallways, cameras flashing as Daniel and Claire were led inside in handcuffs. The case had captured national attention, a shocking story of love, betrayal, and murder that left people horrified. Everyone wanted to see the faces of the man and woman accused of killing the person who had loved them most. The prosecution laid out the evidence piece by piece. the staged crime scene, the deleted messages, the photographs, and the testimony of neighbors who heard the argument. Forensic experts detailed the brutality of the attack and how it could never have been the work of an intruder. Every fact painted the same picture. Daniel and Claire had conspired to cover up Emily's death after a violent outburst. Claire wept through most of the trial, her head bowed, unable to meet the eyes of her family sitting in the gallery. Daniel, on the other hand, remained cold and unflinching, his gaze fixed forward as if the outcome didn't matter. But when the verdict was read, even he couldn't hide his reaction. Guilty, on all counts. Daniel received life in prison without the possibility of parole. Claire was sentenced to 30 years for her role in the cover-up. As the judge delivered the sentences, silence filled the room, a silence heavy with the weight of betrayal and loss. Emily's family sat in shock. They had lost one daughter to murder and another to the prison system. The tragedy rippled through the community, a chilling reminder that even the closest bonds can turn deadly. Emily's story became the subject of documentaries and news specials, a cautionary tale whispered in conversations for years to come. A love that seemed perfect had ended in unimaginable darkness.